So let's tackle part 2 of the Harbor Freight Airbrush review, or as I like to call it, Adventures in Basecoating. So I watched some more videos and I got a lot of tips before I started. The first thing is you have to clean the airbrush after every use, of course. And for acrylic paints like we use on miniatures, it was suggested I use Windex. So that's what I got here. This is actually a 50-50 Windex to water, and it works very well cleaning out the airbrush. And this is something I had not even thought of until I actually saw it done on a video. You have to have somewhere to spray the brush into when you're cleaning it. So I just took a milk jug and cut a chunk out of it, and when you're spraying water and Windex through it to clean the brush, just spray it right in here, and you don't have mess going everywhere. This is something I had not, as I said, I had not even thought of it. If you're doing it outside, of course, you don't need this, but for inside work, yeah, it's definitely something important. So, what did I base coat? Well, this is a Vendetta I'm working on for my cousin, and I used the airbrush to do the color on it. Stupid cable's in the way. So here's what I learned from the Adventures in Basecoating. The first thing I did was one of the wings just for a test, and it didn't take long for me to start having a moisture problem, where the airbrush was splurting water through. There was water being splurted out the tip, creating a very bad result. A little spray pattern with drips of water, and it would thin out the paint too much. It would just run, and it was horrible. And so I did some research. Went back online, did some research. It turns out that not only with this kit, it's a common problem, but it's something you need to deal with whatever airbrush and compressor you're dealing with. So the moisture trap at the compressor end is not good enough. You also need an inline moisture trap, which makes sense because the air is hot at the compressor end, and as it goes down the air hose, it actually cools down, and when it cools down is when you get the condensation. So being in a hurry and being cheap, I ran back down to Harbor Freight Tools, and I picked up this little device here. Oops. It's a moisture trap that actually screws onto the bottom of the airbrush, and I think it was $3 or $4. And this works. After putting this on, I never once had another moisture problem, except for one time when this thing got literally about a third full of water. I mean, it was just full of water. The only time I had any moisture going through the gun at all. So this little thing works. But not all is sunny in Philadelphia with it. So you screw it onto the base of the airbrush like this. And the air hose goes here. Actually, it makes it a little easier to handle, I think. Just like a handle. But here's where we run into a little problem. The cup doesn't fit very well anymore. In fact, this is about the best angle you can get it at, which means for to get any sort of paint flow, you kind of have to hold the airbrush like this, which is good for base coating, but it's not so good for detail work. And so first thing I did was, okay, well, this sucks. I'm going to try the jar. Here's the jar they give you. You can't get it. It doesn't fit anymore with the stupid filter on it. It just doesn't go on. It's like, what the heck? Did anyone at Harbor Freight look to see if it would work before they put the product out? So that was so it's been a little frustrating. So I've only used it for the base coating. So the option, I just need to get an extension. Move this down 2 inches or 3 inches, or get like a 6-inch hose extension, something, so that I can get the jar and the cup on properly. Because this works. I mean, there's no need to replace it because it gets the job done. The filter, that is. But if you can't paint with it on, it's very frustrating. It's been very frustrating to get a good paint flow through it because of this filter. Take the filter off and it just goes psh, 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 psh. There's lots of moisture coming, literally spurts of water going through the gun, which just does not work. So yeah, I get some more money. I'm gonna probably I can get a 10-foot hose, because the one that comes with the kit's only 5 foot, with an inline filter for less than $20 shipped. So I might pick up one of those instead. Or I might run over to Home Depot and see if they have any of the 1/8 NPT fittings, so I can just move the filter down, unscrew it, and move it down a few inches so I can actually use a jar on it. But other than that, I have not had any complaints about the brush itself. It's done a very good job of base coating the Vendetta, which is probably about 90% done right now. This is also for the Scale Model Addict contest they're having. So I'm running out of time. I got to get this thing done basically today on Sunday, because I won't have any time Monday or Tuesday to get it done. So I'm kind of pressed for time, and it may not get as done as I would like. I was planning on doing some airbrushing on the panel lines, but I can't, because I can't manipulate the brush enough to do it, because I can't get a cup that fits on the airbrush. So I said that's not the airbrush's fault. That's the fault of the filter of the moisture trap. So a different moisture trap, you don't have that problem, and you can still use the brush like an airbrush without having to worry about the water going through it. Oh yeah, here, let me show you something. This is what I noticed today as I was using the compressor. Just on up here. Get some light on there. Bring the camera in here. You probably won't be able to see it, but there's a piece of metal down in there, and it's already corroding. There's already some rust inside this moisture trap they give you on the compressor, which was kind of disappointing. So I don't know how long this is going to last before it has to get thrown out. But that was kind of crazy to have a corrodable metal inside a moisture trap. But of course, there's going to be better moisture traps out there on the market in general. So no matter what compressor you buy, if you don't buy a lot of people will buy like a small pancake compressor or something like that, you still need to buy a moisture trap and pressure gauge setup anyway. So I guess that's not really much of an additional expense compared to other compressors. Yeah, there's definitely... You know what? That may not be right. That may simply be... No, that's definitely... Oh, there's definitely some rust down in there. So this will probably have to be... So this part here will have to be replaced sooner than later, unfortunately. As I said, getting a good compressor and moisture trap and regulator setup is not a bad idea for this particular compressor anyway. So it's really not that big of a loss. It's something that should have been bought, or should be on the shopping list as is, but this is just kind of accelerates the purchase time. So that's all I have to talk about on this part of the compressor. As soon as I can figure out how to get the moisture trap out of the way so I can use the brush better, then I'll get into some detail work. But for now, base coating, works really well. It's very easy to clean, very easy to take apart. I've had no complaints at all about the performance of the brush itself. And until next time, talk to you later.